about giant monsters before. You may have heard about this movie that came out last year called Cloverfield. Had a big giant monster with sort of twangy legs, ate a bunch of New York and some kids who were putting things on YouTube. And you said to yourself, how can I find out more about giant monsters? How can I get into this? That's where I come in. I'm gonna help you out with the giant monsters. So we're gonna start our giant monster tour with the classic giant monster, Godzilla. Classic atomic age giant monster. Basically, there's some kind of vague atomic accident and suddenly this sort of dinosaur-shaped creature comes out of the water and starts stomping Japan. Godzilla also begins in later movies to fight other cool giant monsters, especially my favorite, the three-headed monster from space known as Ghidorah, who has these awesome kind of like lightning breath weapons. But you shouldn't think that all giant monsters are bad, because there's nice giant monsters like Gamera, a giant flying turtle who helps children. So, you know, one of the things about Gamera and Godzilla is that they've been around for a while. You know, they started in the 50s and 60s, but you still have Godzilla and Gamera movies coming out today. And there was even a modern redo of Godzilla in the late 1990s in the United States with this horrible CGI monster. Kind of looked like it's humping like a piece of New York in this picture. I really feel like the less said about that, the better, because really the one true giant monster is the Japanese version of Godzilla. Some people would say he's the best monster, and partly that's because there's a kind of social meaning in Godzilla films and in Japanese giant monster films, and that's why in the early 1970s, Godzilla fought Ghidorah, the smog monster, who was literally made out of tons of smog that it ate out of the smokestacks of Japan. It's full of all this icky, shitty stuff that comes out and like kills people and everything. But you know, the smog and pollution theme continues right up to the present day. Last year's very best giant monster movie, The Host, features this monster that sort of looks like a carp or an alligator. Anyway, it's created because a bunch of people are polluting in the ocean off Korea. Then there's United States films like Tarantula, which has a giant tarantula, which also kind of has a social message because it's all about how science is messing around with gigantism and things that it doesn't understand. And then, of course, there's another classic American giant monster movie, Them, which is basically like Tarantula, but with giant ants. And they're created by atomic energy. So it's a kind of anti-nuke film in the same way that Godzilla is as well. Then there's giant monsters that are giant because of things you don't really understand, like this giant octopus that's here eating the Bay Bridge and part of the ferry building in San Francisco in the classic film, It Came From Beneath the Sea. We never really learn why it's giant. Same thing goes for King Kong. He's giant, but why is he giant? We never really find out. We just know that he's really big. And at this point, King Kong kind of feels like a bit of an outdated, almost racist icon, which makes you wonder, why the hell did Peter Jackson do that stupid King Kong remake after he had that great run with Lord of the Rings? I really can't tell you why, but I think it might have had something to do with the fucking awesome dinosaur fights in that film. Then there's giant people. Okay, so you have the 50-foot tall lady in Attack of the 50-Foot woman who gets that way because she's at the wrong end of an alien attack. So she grows to be really big and spends the rest of the film looking for her philandering husband. There's also the giant teenagers in Village of the Giants who eat this groovy thing that makes them really tall and allows them to torture the villagers by asking them to play rock music so they can do giant dances. Now, the meaning of both the giant teenager film and the giant lady film is that if you have really big boobies attached to a liberated lady, they are really scary, so stay away. So the real question is, what can giant monsters do for you? I know that that's what you're asking yourself right now, and part of the answer is, well, they can help you defend yourself against bad guys with a bunch of tanks, and that's kind of nice. The other thing that giant monsters can do for you is allow you to contemplate the puniness of your existence in the face of vast alien forces that you can't possibly ever hope to understand. And then, the final thing that giant monsters can do is they can allow you to look at really big things beating the shit out of other really big things, and maybe that's just the whole point. Thanks very much.